Masechet Zevaḥim, Daf Tet Vav. We ended off the previous daf with a halacha from Ula in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Holacha shelo baregel lo shema holacha. One of the four activities after slaughtering and receiving the blood in a vessel is to convey it, to bring it to the mizbeach. And Rabbi Yochanan ruled that it has to be done by foot. You actually have to walk, move your feet, and bring it there. It is not sufficient just to pass it. Let's say you're close by, and you can just pass it along. Not sufficient. You actually have to move your feet. Furthermore, it has to be a valid kohen that's doing it. So an invalid kohen, even if he's walking it, and certainly if he's only passing it, also would not be a valid holacha. Now we ask, efshar letakuna or la efshar letakuna? Can you correct it? Let's say the kohen passed it by hand all the way to the mizbeach, and now he realized, we didn't do it. We didn't move our feet. So can you put it back where it was and then do it again? Or let's say you gave it to a non-kohen who brought it to the mizbeach, and then you said, no, this is not good. We didn't do a holacha. Can you bring it back to the starting point and then do it properly with the kohen walking? Can you fix it? Or once you do it in the wrong way, does it become totally pasul permanently? Tashema, kibel hakasher v'natan lapasul yachzir lakasher. Let's try to answer it from a Mishnah that later on in this Masechet that we mentioned yesterday. And this Mishnah said, let's say you have a kohen who is doing the slaughtering and receiving of the blood. Fine. And then, Zaski Bela Kasher, he received the blood in a vessel, and that's okay. But then he gave it to someone pasul. He gave it to a non-kohen. And the non-kohen, he passes it, he moves it. Certainly if he walks it, that would be a problem. So what should he do? He should bring it back. Give it back to the kohen, and then let the kohen do it. Bring it from there. So you see that, yes, you can fix it. Even if a non-kohen moved it away and did some holacha, you can bring it back. Yesterday, we gave a different reading of this Mishnah, and we said no. The Mishnah doesn't mean that the non-kohen gives it back, brings it back to the original kohen. Rather, it's permissible even if, let's say, the kohen hands it off to the non-kohen, and then the non-kohen doesn't have to bring it all the way back, but rather can then give it to another kohen. And so the yachzor kohen vikabelenu. A kosher kohen can receive it from the non-kohen without bringing it all the way back, but he'll finish off the way, and that's sufficient. Even according to that, if you think that once a non-kohen handles it, moves it, walks it, it becomes pasul, then it will be pasul permanently. But here we don't say that. One way or another, no matter how you read the Mishnah, it's possible even though the non-kohen moved it, transferred it, walked it, even though he did that, still he can return it to a kohen, either the original kohen back where he was, or another kohen along the way. Either way, it is possible to fix it. So that's an answer. Efshar letakuna. Mi sebarat deka'e zar gavai, lo deka'e zar barai. And now we say, no, there's no proof from either of these readings. Did you think that the non-kohen was standing towards the mizbeach? In other words, from the original kohen who received the blood, is the non-kohen standing between the kohen and the mizbeach, and he's advancing it forward? No, in which case he is contributing to the holacha. No, that's not the case. It's actually that he is transferring it backwards. The non-kohen is walking away from the mizbeach, and that's why it's okay, because he did not contribute to the holacha at all. If you walk it the wrong way, then that's the opposite of holacha. That doesn't count. This is like if you receive the football and you run the wrong way towards the enemy's goal line. That's what I used to do. That's why they wouldn't pass it to me anymore. So this guy, he's a non-kohen, he doesn't know which way he's going. That's the case where it's okay, since he went the wrong way, okay, bring it back over here to the starting point and then start all over again. That's permitted because he didn't contribute to the halacha. He in fact went the wrong way. That's where you can go to start all over again because he went the wrong way. But if the non-kohen would have gone towards the mizbeach, and contributed to the halacha, then maybe it would not be good. So therefore, there is no proof from here that efshar litakuna. Itmad Amar Ula Amar Rabbi Yochanan holacha shelo baregel pesula alma lo efshar letakuna. And so now we have an almost final answer. It seems like a final answer, but we have a halachic ruling on this by Ula in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, who says that if one conveys it but not on foot, it's pesula. Notice that this is similar to the ruling we have over here, holacha shelo baregel, but over here he said it in a lighter way. He just said it's not called holacha. Okay, just not called holacha, but that means that sounds like it's nothing. So therefore, just don't count it. And then if it was conveyed by hand, that's considered not an act. So maybe then you can go and do a good act, and then it would be positive. But here he's saying something more, that if you do holacha not with a proper kohen who is not walking, if you do a real kohen, a proper kohen who's walking, then it's good. If you don't do that, then it becomes pasul. So there you go. Once it's pasul, it's pasul. That's the law of a korban. That's it. It's unfit, so it remains unfit, and therefore we can conclude that according to the Rabbi Yochanan, there is no way to fix it once it's done wrongly. Now, even though Rabbi Yochanan made this halachic ruling, we have a challenge. Rav Nachman challenged Ula about it from a Mishnah later on Daf 32 that says, Nishpach min hakli al harispa va'asafo kasher. Let's say a kohen is carrying the blood in a vessel, and then while he's walking, it spills on the floor, and he collects it from the floor, and he gets it back into the vessel. The 2-second rule. Okay, there's not really a 2-second rule, but he's able to get it back into the vessel. It's kosher. So doesn't that mean that yes, you can fix it? Because once it spills, it's going to spill in all directions, right? And some of it's going to spill towards the mizbeach. That means it's going towards the mizbeach, not by someone carrying it on foot, but rather just by it spilling towards it. And yet you can take it back, put it back in the vessel, and then start from there, and you're still okay. So isn't this a proof that you can fix it against Rabbi Yochanan, who said you cannot fix it? And the answer is no. When we said this Mishnah on Daf 32 that says kasher is only is only in a case where when it spills, it goes backwards away from the mizbeach. That's why it's okay. But in fact, if some of it would go towards the mizbeach, it would not be good. And we ask, what if you spill something with liquid on the floor, is it only going to go backwards and not forwards? It's going to go splatter in all directions. That's the way liquids work. And the answer is no. It could be bimkom midron. Maybe it's a incline, and so it's inclined backwards away from the mizbeach, and therefore it all spills backwards. Or maybe there's a hole on the floor and it all collects into the hole, and therefore it doesn't flow forwards. Or it could be where the blood is already thickened, and so it's not spreading; it just stays in a blob, and so it's not going forward. So yes, it is possible for it not to go forward, and that's the reason. So the Rabbi Yochanan, Ula has an answer, and so we can uphold Rabbi Yochanan's ruling that if it would go forward, it would not be good. This whole Mishnah that says it's kosher is only in the case where it stayed in place or went backwards. We challenge this. Is the Tana going to go through the trouble of teaching me this case in such an unlikely scenario, and you're not even going to tell me anything about it? You're just going to say kasher. Oh, it's only kasher in this unlikely scenario that it's in an incline, it's congealed, and so on. So this is ukimta. I know we make ukimtot, but this one is very unreasonable. Furthermore, there's another Mishnah on 25 that's a correlate of this Mishnah, and there it says, let's say, while doing shechita, so someone does shechita on the animal, and the blood immediately goes right to the floor. It was never caught in a vessel. There was never kabbalah, and so then if you after it goes on the floor, then you put it into a vessel. That is not good. So you see, that's a correlate to this Mishnah. If you put these two Mishnah together, you see a distinction. If the blood goes directly from the animal's neck onto the floor, then that's it. It's no good. You didn't do an initial Kabbalah. It's not going to help that you collect it afterwards into a vessel. However, as long as you initially collected it from the neck of the animal into a vessel, and then during holacha, now you're moving it and it spills, you can put it back in the vessel. You have to have an initial Kabbalah. After the initial Kabbalah, if it spills, you can put it back. But if you never received it in the first place and it went on the floor, that's not good. Okay, fine. We understand that halacha. But liflog bedideh. Generally, we want the Mishnah to give the finest distinction, and not cases that are further apart. So rather, it should have said, instead of giving us the case where it fell on the floor right from the neck of the animal, you could have said a finer distinction. Within the very case of when you're conveying the vessel, you're walking with the vessel and it spills on the floor, don't just tell me, oh, that's kasher. You should have made a finer distinction to say, oh, if you're carrying the vessel and that spills on the floor, if it goes outside, lahus, then it goes away from the mizbeach, then it's okay, you can put it back. But if it goes towards the mizbeach, then it's no good. That would be a finer distinction, so it should have mentioned that rather than the more different case of when it went from the neck of the animal right on the floor. And therefore, tiyubta, we don't accept these answers of Ula, and in fact, this Mishnah is going to refute the ruling of Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore against Rabbi Yochanan, who said that it's impossible to fix it, we end up saying that's refuted, and therefore, if you mess up on the conveying of the blood, it is possible to fix it, even if someone took it and spilled on the floor, or someone who was non-Kohen conveyed it some of the way. As long as you then give it to a Kohen and he retraces the steps and fixes it, that's okay. Itmar, holacha shelo baregel machloket Rabbi Shimon v'Rabbanan. B'holacha rabati dekula amala pelige dipsula, ki pelige b'holacha zutarti. We're now going to reinterpret the machloket between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan from the Mishnah. There's no author for this statement. It's said anonymously, but it's a sage that was found in Bavel said. We read about the machloket Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan regarding holacha. Rabbanan said that you have to have proper intention during holacha. It's one of the major avodot, and therefore, if you have improper intention, the korban is pasul. Rabbi Shimon, however, says no, holacha is not that important because it can be circumvented. You could do shechita right next to the korban, right next to the mizbeach, and then you wouldn't have to do holacha. So therefore, even if you are doing holacha and you're bringing it from a few steps away or from the other side of the courtyard, but since you could do it in a way that you wouldn't have to do halacha, so halacha is optional. Therefore, even if you are doing halacha, if you have improper intention, it's still kosher. That's the way we interpreted the machloket Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan. But now we reinterpret it and say, when it comes to a large, major holacha, means walking by moving your feet, taking steps, in that case, everybody agrees, la piligi de pisula. If you have improper intention, it's no good. Even Rabbi Shimon would say that, because you're doing a major act, actually carrying the blood and taking steps, having improper thought, that's no good. Everybody agrees to that. So where's the machloket? Machloket is holacha zutarti, if you're conveying it in a minor way, meaning not by taking steps, but just by moving your hand. Like if you did shechita right next to the mizbeach, and then all you would have to do is just stretch out your hand, and that would be sufficient to get the blood close enough to the mizbeach in order to do zirika. That's where you have a machloket where Rabbanan would say, that's still holacha. So if you have improper thought while you're doing that, it's no good. And Rabbi Shimon would say, oh, you're just doing a little thing. It's barely even an act. And so he doesn't count that act as being significant, and therefore you have improper thought during that. It's okay. Machaku Allah b'ma'arava. When this opinion from Bavel got to Eretz Yisrael, the sages in the West in Eretz Yisrael made fun of it. Not only they disagreed with it, they were like, that's crazy. Ela hata ta'of tifsula ba'machshava l'Rabbi Shimon hechi mashkachat la. And the reason why they totally rejected it and even laughed at it, we're going to see two explanations. The first one is from hata ta'of. which we know that if one has improper intention when one is doing the services for chatat ha'of, then it's going to be pasul. Now, according to the Rabbi Shimon, how would you ever have a situation where the preparation of chatat ha'of would become pasul by machshava? Because look at the steps. You don't do shechita with a bird, rather you do milika. Okay, so he presses his thumb into the back. The Kohen presses his thumb, his nail, into the back of the neck. Now, once he does that, he doesn't have to do it in any special spot. He could do it right at the mizbeach. And so as soon as he does that, so then the blood will start coming out. So then he just has to shake the bird. He bird's in his hand. He doesn't have to do Kabbalah into a vessel. Rather, he can sprinkle it right from the body, right from the neck of the bird. And so immediately he does the milika, and then he'll shake it, move it around, release the thumb so that the blood will start coming out, and the blood comes out. Now, when is he going to even have a chance to have an improper thought? If he has an improper thought before blood comes out, well, nothing happened yet. He didn't do anything. And if it's after the blood came out, then the mitzvah is already done. He already did zirika. We're assuming right now that the mitzvah of zirika is done as soon as he lets the blood out. Even before it reaches the mizbeach, he did his thing. He sprinkled. And so there's no Kabbalah of the dam. There's no conveying the blood. It's all done right then and there in 1 second, in 1 moment. As soon as the blood comes out, it's already finished. So there's no time. There's not even 1 second where he would be in the process of doing something that he could have wrong intention. Now, if you interpret Rabbi Shimon to say that as long as you're standing there is no such thing as holacha, a small holacha. Just moving your hand is not considered anything, and even false intention while doing that is not significant. So, in this case, you're not walking, you're not taking steps. All you're doing is shaking the bird, right? You move it back and forth so that in the fourth motion, then you release your finger, and then the blood will spurt out. But during that movement, that is holacha zutarti. That's just a small. You're not moving your feet. You're just doing a small thing, a small act with your hand and pushing it forwards. And Rabbi Shimon said that false, wrong intention during that act does not make it pasul. So in this case, we know that chatat ha'of, the Mishnah teaches that there is a pasul of machshava in such a case. But we cannot find a moment where it would be pasul lemachshava, not during the shaking, because that's holacha zutarti. And then as soon as he releases his thumb and the blood comes out, even just 1 drop flies out, he already fulfilled the mitzvah. And so it would be impossible to have any psul in chatat ha'of. But we know there has to be a psul in chatat ha'of because the Mishnah says so. And therefore this reading is of Rabbi Shimon is impossible. And we answer it. Actually, it could be from the time that the blood leaves the neck of the bird till it reaches the mizbeach. It's going to take 3 seconds till it flies in the air. And during that time, in fact, one has not fulfilled the obligation of of sprinkling until it actually gets to the mizbeach. How do you know that? תאה ידו של מזה עד שלא הגיע דם לאוויר המזבח מהו ואמר לפסולה מה טעמה והיזה ונתן בעינן. We have a question that Rabbi Yirmiyah asked Rabbi Zera. What if a Kohen is sprinkling blood? And while he's sprinkling, so he sprinkles the blood, and the blood is flying in the air, and just at that moment, during those 3 seconds, an arrow comes and cuts off the Kohen's hand, and then he becomes pasul. He has a blemish, and it didn't yet reach the altar. What is the law? And Rabbi Zera answered, the korban is pasul. Why? Because the pasuk says vihiza, that the Kohen has to sprinkle, and then the next pasuk says venatan, and he has to place the blood on the corner of the altar. Meaning, it's not enough that he send it, that he throw it. It actually has to reach the mizbeach Mizbeach. And so you see from here that the sprinkling itself takes a little bit of time, takes 3 seconds, and is not fulfilled until it actually gets to the airspace of the Mizbeach, and therefore that's an answer according to the Rabbi Shimon. There is a way of making it pasul. It's true, during the holacha process of just moving the bird, that wrong intention there is not going to make it pasul. Indeed, but it can become pasul during the zidikah, because the zidikah itself takes 3 seconds from the time the blood leaves the bird until it reaches the mizbeach. And so therefore there's no reason to laugh at this interpretation of Rabbi Shimon. And so why are they laughing in the West? This is if this is the reason, then we have an answer for it. So when Rav Papa and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yoshua, came from the study hall, they said, we have a reason, we have an explanation. We have to explain the joke, then it's not going to be so funny anymore. But here, it's not a joke, it's a serious challenge against this interpretation. And so, although the challenge before we can answer, here is why they're trying to explain why did they laugh in the West. We heard the reaction that they laughed, but we're trying to reconstruct what they had a problem with. And this is it. Hainu chucha, this is the laughing. Beholacha rabati la pelige, v'haki pelige, beholacha rabati pelige. Are you telling me that they're not arguing when you have a large conveying, meaning actually walking by foot? That is the very machloket. It's only in a case where you're walking by foot. How do you know that? Because Rabbi Shimon explained his reasoning. He said, since you can dispense with the holacha. How could you dispense with the holacha? By doing shechita, not instead of doing it in the courtyard far away, you do it right at the mizbeach. And then, therefore, you wouldn't have to take any steps. Since you can dispense with the holacha, therefore having improper thought is okay. Now, here's the thing. Even if you are right next to the mizbeach, you'd still have to stretch out your hand somewhat in order to move the receptacle to the closer to the mizbeach in order to do the zedikah. So you're going to need to do the small holacha no matter what. That is not dispensable. There's no way around that. You can't circumvent the small one. So therefore, even Rabbi Shimon has to agree that regarding a small moving of the a basin with one's hand, since that's a necessary thing to do, there's no way to dispense of it. Having wrong intention in that case would make it pasul. Everybody would agree regarding the holacha zutarti. Rather, the machloket is only in walking, because that's the only part that is dispensable. Ela beholacha zutarti kula alma la peligi de la pasla ki pelige beholacha rabati. Rather, you have to say that regarding the minor conveying, meaning only by hand, here it says everybody agrees that la pasla, that it's okay. But this doesn't make any sense. And in fact, Rashi amends it. And if we look at the manuscripts, you see that although the printed editions and maybe one Kitav Yad has law, but all the other Kitvei Yad do not have it. So do not have the law. Rather, you have to read it, Kula amala peligi de pasla. Okay, that if you read it that way, then it makes sense. So when it comes to minor conveying, just moving by hand, everybody agrees that pasla, that is no good because that is indispensable. There's no way you can get around moving it somewhat with your hand, just from even if you're right next to the Mizbeach, you still have to pass it so that it will be right next to the Mizbeach in order to do the zerikah. Since that's necessary, everybody agrees that wrong intention will make it pasul. Rather, the machloket is only if you are walking it from far. That's where Rabbanan say, that's still an important action, and therefore wrong intention makes it pasul. And Rabbi Shimon says, no, since it's circumventable, therefore wrong intention does not. So this is the reason, according to Rav Papa, why in Eretz Yisrael they made fun of this interpretation, because it's impossible, doesn't fit with the wording and the reasoning that's in the Mishnah itself. Next, we get back to the question of whether you can fix a holacha if it was done incorrectly. Holicho zar vecheziro kohen vechazar veholicho peligi ba bene Rabbi Chaya veRabbi Yoanai hadamar kasher vechadamar pasul. If a non-kohen carried the blood, let's say from the place of the shechita to the mizbeach. Okay, he carried it all the way there. But then a kohen took it from him, brought it back to the original spot, and then brought it again. So he retraced the steps, he fixed it. So does that make it better? It's a machloket between the sons of Rabbi Chaya and Rabbi Yoanai. We don't know who said which, but one of them said, yes, it's kosher, and one of them says, no, it's not. Amor sabat efshar letakuna, amor sabat lo efshar letakuna. The one who says it's kosher thinks that you can fix it. Yeah, you did it wrong in the first time, and now it's at the mizbeach. But as long as you bring it back, and now a kohen brings it to the right place, okay, so you did it. So a kohen brought it from point A to point B, it's okay. Even though the non-kohen did it first, by going backwards, you undid it. However, the other opinion says, no, you can't fix it. Once a non-kohen does it, it becomes pasul, and there's no way to fix it. Holicho kohen vehecheziro vehazar veholicho zar amar Rav Shimi bar Ashe lidivra machshir pasul lidivra posel machshir. And now we have a fun puzzle. What if a kohen brought it from point A to point B, from the place of shechita, carried the blood to the mizbeach, and then the kohen brought it back? And after that, a non-kohen brought it a second time. What do we do in that case? Rav Shimi bar Ashe says that the opinions will be switched. The opinion that says if a non-kohen brought it first, and then the kohen brought it back and brought it back again is kosher. In this case, it will be pasul. Why would that be? Because that opinion says that you can undo a first action. This is like the Ferris Bueller principle. If you drive a car 100 miles and you add more 100 miles to the speedometer. If you drive it backwards 100 miles, but does the speedometer go down? Ferris Bueller thought that yes, it does. And it goes back to the original state that it was in before. So if you agree with that principle, that by bringing it back to its spot, it resets, well, that would explain both of these rulings. If a non-Kohen brought it from A to B in the first place, a Kohen brings it back from B to A, now we reset the clock, everything is good again, and now the Kohen brings it, that's kosher. Whereas, if a Kohen brought it from A to B, and the Kohen brought it back from B to A, we reset the clock, it's as if nothing happened. And then a non-Kohen brings it, so now we only look at the second person that brought it, because you undo the action of the first person. Therefore, the Divra Machshir Pasul. But the Divra Posel, someone says that if the opinion that said that if a non-Kohen brings it first, then it's no good. So that means once you brought, that's pasul. Once you brought the first one, it's no good. And even if you go back and forwards, it's not going to be good. So according to that, we look at the first person that brings it. So if the first person that brings it is a Zad, it's no good. But if the first person who brings it is a Kohen, then it's okay. So this is against the Ferris Bueller principle. Once you drive it from A to B, that's it, it's at B. If you do anything more, you already fulfilled it. You can't undo by driving backwards. And so, as long as the Kohen brought it first from A to B, and then the non-Kohen brought it a second time, doesn't matter. You already fulfilled the obligation. That is the opinion of Rav Shimi bar Ashe. Rava disagrees, however. Rava amar af l'divra posel pasul, mai ta'ama teha sarich le'amtu yeh. Rava thinks that in the second case, where a Kohen brings it the first time, and then a non-Kohen brings it the second time, everybody will agree that it's pasul. Why? Because if the non-Kohen brought it first, then that's it. He made it pasul and lo efshar l'takoneh. You can't fix it. So it doesn't help if the Kohen brings it the second time. That's why it's pasul in that case. And it's also pasul the other way around because, according to this, if a Kohen brought it from A to B and back from B to A, it undoes his action. That action is undone, and therefore, when the Zar brings it, then that's pasul. So therefore, a Kohen who does it properly can undo his action, and by undoing his action, then the Zar, what he does is no good. But if a Zad did it the first time, then game over. So as soon as a Zad brings it, there's no way to fix it. Although there is a way to undo what a Kohen does if he brings it from A to B and B back to A. Well, now it has to be brought. It's in the wrong place. So someone has to bring it to the right place, and therefore, in order to get to the right place, you have to do it properly. And so, according to Rava, the one who says pasul in the first case will also say pasul in the second case, because dasarich lam tuyeh, you have to bring it. It has to be brought, and has to be brought properly. So, however it's getting there, the first time around or the second time around, cannot be by a non-Kohen. Amar le Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rav Asher. Hachi amar Rav Yirmiyah midifti ha sarich lam tuyeh machloket Rabbi Eliezer v'Rabbanan. Now Rabbi Yirmiyah tells Rav Asher that Rav Yirmiyah midifti, he is elaborating on Rava's opinion, and he says that when he said that you have to bring it again, actually, because it has to be brought, brought by a Kohen, and a non-Kohen, first time or second time is not going to be good. This is actually subject to a machloket between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbanan. Rabbi Eliezer is from our Mishnah. We had Rabbanan in our Mishnah, we had Rabbi Shimon, and we also had Rabbi Eliezer. Ditnan, Rabbi Eliezer omer, hamalech b'makom she'sarich lehalech, machshava poselet. Makom she'en sarich lehalech, en machshava poselet. If someone carries the blood and walks in a path that he has to in order to get it there, then if you have improper thought, then it's no good. But if he walks the wrong way, he walks backwards, he walks around in circles, a place where he does not have to go in order to get it from A to B, he's not going in a straight line, he's going the other way, then if he has improper thought, that improper thought will not make it pasul. V'amar Rava. And so now we're going to explain how this machloket affects our case. Hakol modim kibelo bachutz v'chniso bifnim zeu iluch shesarich lehalech. Now, if you receive the blood far from the mizbeach, point A, the place of shechita, let's say in the north or wherever, everybody, and then you brought it to bifnim, meaning to the mizbeach, everybody would agree that that is necessary bringing. And therefore, Rabbi Eliezer would certainly agree with Rabbanan that improper thought would make it pasul. That's easy. Kibelo bifnim v'osio lahutz, zeh hu hiluch she'en sarich lehalech. But if you started off at the Mizbeach and then you take it farther away from the Mizbeach, then that is clearly something that is unnecessary walking, and even Rabbanan would say, oh, wrong intention. If you're walking backwards, the wrong way, away from the Mizbeach, that's not holacha. You're just doing, I don't know what you're doing. You're walking the wrong way. So that's not called holacha, and therefore wrong intention there will not be a problem. That's not a machloket either. Lo nechilku ela kishehichniso vechazar vehosio. What was the machloket? It's our case where someone brought it in and then took it back out, and now you have to bring it in a second time. What do we say about that? Mor sabar ha sarich lam tuyeh, or mor sabar lav ki hiluch ha sarich lavodah dameh. That's where Rabbanan say, well, I know you brought it in and you took it back out, but now you have to bring it back in again because you're going to have to do zirika at the mizbeach, so it's going to have to be brought. So you brought it there, but now by bringing it back, you undid the action, and now you have to bring it again. So therefore, the second time you bring it, you have to have proper machshava. Otherwise, it's no good. That's the opinion of Rabbanan. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer says that this is not necessary carrying. You brought it in the first time, good. Now, so now you're good. You did the action. Now you brought it back out. You're coming back in. You're walking around and around. That's not good. You did the necessary action already, and therefore the next action that you're bringing it back with improper intention or with azad, that would be okay. So you see that this very case is subject to the machloket between Rabbanan and Rabbi Eliezer. That's the opinion of Rava. Iti Abaye challenges this from a baraita. The Baraita quotes Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer omer, Hamalech b'makom shesarich lehalech machshava poselet. Kesad, ki belo bachus v'chniso lifnim, zehu hiluch shesarich lehalech. Ki belo bifnim v'hosio lachutz, zehu hiluch she'en sarich lelech. If someone, according to Rabbi Eliezer, carries the blood, walks with the blood in a path that is necessary, then if he has wrong intention, it'll make it pasul. What's an example of that? If he received the blood far from the Mizbeach and brought it close to the Mizbeach, that is a place where he had to walk. But if he received it close to the Mizbeach and then brought it far from the Mizbeach, that is called something that is not necessary. He's going the wrong way, and therefore, wrong machshava there would not make it pasul. That's the end of the Braita. We can infer from the Braita, that means that only the pathway that he took from the Mizbeach to farther away, that's called en sarich le'elech. That's all he said in the Braita. But we can infer that when he brings it back the second time, that is a necessary act. And so even Rabbi Eliezer, according to this inference from this Braita, even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that the second time you bring it towards the Mizbeach is also a necessary pathway, and therefore also will make it pasul. And therefore, your interpretation, Rava, that you said is subject to a machloket is not true. Actually, according to Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbanan, both the first time and second time that you bring it to the Mizbeach are necessary pathways, and will make it pasul if you have the wrong intention. Amar le itanya tanya. And Rava said, if you have a Braita, you have a Braita. I can't disagree with a Braita, and so even though it's just an inference from a Braita, but okay, he agrees with the inference, and though he had some logic to back him up, but the logic cannot override a tradition. Hadran alach kol hazevaḥim. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.